aren't able to make the live session. Again, please note we will be recording this session to post later for people who are not able to make the live session. Pass this on to our guest of honor, Katherine Bertolli.
Thank you, Quintice. I will go ahead and switch over to share my screen. Just one moment.
Pero no.
So I'm going to make sure if you can just confirm that my presentation is up and you're able to see that okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate Naomi and Quintice and Department of Human Services OST team in inviting me to speak to you today. I was kind of looking at the chat as folks were coming into the room and introducing themselves, and I was heartened to see actually my old boss who said hello. So hello, Heather. You know, I now work for the Department of Public Health here in Philadelphia, as mentioned. But my first career actually was in out-of-school time programs, and I worked for Methodist Services, who is one of the contracted agencies through DHS. So sometimes things come full circle. So I just wanted to say again, thank you so much for having me speak today. I work within the Division of Chronic Disease and Injury Prevention within the Department of Public Health. We're otherwise known as Get Healthy Philly, a lot easier to remember. My role is as Nutrition and Food Service Coordinator. So I work with city departments like DHS and all of their contracted providers to implement our City of Philadelphia nutrition standards in any programs that serve food, sell food, or otherwise provide food. But I'll talk a little bit about that more as my presentation continues. So I wanted to start today with the acknowledgement that we're living in a moment of reckoning in our city, throughout the nation, and around the world. And as we navigate our way through a worldwide pandemic, we're also coming to terms with systemic injustices that plague the daily lives of our Black communities and communities of color. We're going to talk about some of these issues at play today here in Philadelphia within the larger social context of health justice and discuss impactful opportunities. The programming you offer is some of the most valuable work we have to demonstrate care and support for our communities. So I came across this meme in the upper right and thought it appropriate for the current moment. And given our conversation about nutrition-related impacts and things that we can do. And I'm just going to take a second to read it. It says, being salty is so last year. Start being marinated. Let them know that you've been swimming in a mixture of emotions for a very long time. And I think this is a message that resonates among adults and youth alike, particularly in these present times. So just kind of going through today's agenda, I want to talk about why we focus on nutrition and physical activity, kind of where we are and where we've been, speaking to the state of public health here in Philadelphia, and discuss the healthy living guidelines, and have some open time for discussion with the group. So I want to start by opening up our minds and our bodies, and I'm going to stand up here and invite you to do the same. This is something you can do also at your desk. Feel free to join with me. So I want to take a couple moments, and I'm hoping that you can see my full body. If not, that's okay too. And I just want to start by doing some slow stretches, and we'll start with our shoulders and do 5 rolls to the back. Remember to breathe as we're doing this. Pardon me if I lose count. I think I got to 5 there, and I'm going to do the same. Moving forward. Just slow, opening up I know you all have been sitting for a little bit already this morning.
So Catherine, we can see the slide, but we can't see your physical body. So you may have to unshare the slide and then go back to the slide.
Okay, I can do that. Can you see me now?
No.
No.
Let me exit the slideshow. So that should make the difference, ideally. I've unshared, and you know what? My camera wasn't on, so there we go.
Now we see you. Hi, Kat.
Always open to talking about technical difficulties. It's fantastic. So keep joining with me. We worked out our shoulders. We can just tip our head to the left. We're going to move it forward. Again, I stress slow, controlled movements here. So we're going to go around 2 times. Looking up to the sky, and then let's move the other direction. Back to the center, over to the left. And we'll do one more round of these slow head rolls. Shake that out a little bit in your shoulders. I hope I have enough room in this room. This is not the biggest of rooms, but let's stretch out our arms and we'll do some slow rolls forward with our arms to 5. We'll start them small, thinking about, maybe you have basketballs at the ends of your hands and you're rolling around that basketball. Maybe you have a cantaloupe, a honeydew, rolling around that honeydew. Now we're going to take it and go a little bit larger. Think of a hula hoop. We're rolling our arms, our hands around a hula hoop. And we'll take it back 5 times. Great. And I'm not going to share the screen. I'll share the screen so you can actually see it. This second activity, which is, again, kind of a movement break, also a bit of a brain break. I want everybody to cross their arms over and take your opposite earlobes. So this might feel a little bit funny at first. I definitely felt a little goofy when I was doing it the first time, and I was also worried about falling down. So I want to, again, emphasize taking this slow. So what we're going to do is, as we bend forward, we're going to take an inhale. And you can bend forward a little bit. You can bend, so you're at 90 degrees. You can bend further. This is what you want to do with it. Do what your body allows. Don't, overstretch. So as you're leaning down, we're going to inhale. Slow, slow, slow. And as we're coming back up, we're going to take an exhale. So this is a type of activity that can be used as a brain break. It is a movement break. It's also something that, kind of allows us to kind of settle into ourselves and assess where we are mentally, physically, spiritually. And I encourage you to use these types of resources in your programs. And what we've been doing, and I'm going to reshare my screen here so you can actually see this and what it looks like, is we've been building out a host of resources working with Naomi, and we'll continue to build out those resources. But I just want you to kind of take a moment internally and think about how you came into this session, how you felt coming into this session, and how you feel right now. Just kind of taking stock. So these types of activities are really great to work into, whether you're physically in the space of your youth or you're working virtually, they can be infused into these virtual transition times, kind of worked into check-ins. If you are, as camps are happening throughout the summer, if you're working between activities, these are really great little brain breaks, little movement breaks that can be incorporated wherever you like. So a little bit of background on Get Healthy Philly. I mentioned that we are the Division of Chronic Disease and Injury Prevention situated within the Philadelphia Department of Public Health. My role specifically is around nutrition primarily, and I'm in the space of nutrition and physical activity. But as a kind of how we work and what we do, at our core, we believe that all Philadelphians should be able to live long, happy, and healthy lives, regardless of race, ability, or zip code. And so we work to make the healthy choice the easy choice, where we live, work, learn, shop, and play. And the whole point of all this is to prevent chronic diseases such as high blood pressure, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and some cancers. So we know that progress only happens when we treat all people, communities, partners, and staff with dignity, care, and respect. So in this work, we recognize that we all don't stand on level footing and that there are many barriers in need to overcoming and creating a just society. It is this acknowledgement that drives us towards seeking just solutions as we form policies, make changes, systems, and each environment in which we work. So in our work, we understand the need to move beyond the notion of equality and equity and shift our mindsets towards one of justice. So what this graphic shows is kind of looking at these different concepts, what they mean, and how we apply them in our programs, thinking specifically about what it is that our young people need, what it is that our communities need, and how our programs fit into this equation. So just some definitions. Equality focuses on individuals and gives the same thing to everyone without accounting for unique needs, whereas equity accounts for our unique needs. It also focuses on individuals and accounts for, okay, well, not all of us have the same sets of needs. Now, this shift towards a mind frame of justice goes above and beyond. So whereas equity is focusing on, an individual's unique needs or a community's unique needs, justice takes this a step further and focuses on the systemic problems rather than individual needs, and really identifies those core barriers and eliminates them. So acknowledging the foundation or the ground from which we begin. So the next couple of slides are really kind of a snapshot of the state of Philadelphia's public health, and the idea is to set the foundation for today's discussion. So what we have up here are two maps. One on the left is low to no walkable access to healthy foods in combination with high poverty areas throughout the city of Philadelphia. On the right, we see perceived safe access to parks and outdoor spaces. And it's very important that we focus on the idea of perception here because, Philadelphia is blessed with many great park assets, as you know. However, the idea of what that park means to different people is highly relevant when we think about how we actually access these spaces. So access to healthy food options and in spaces that encourage physical activity are widely varied across the city, which is one contributing factor why some people are at higher risk and have higher amounts of chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, and heart disease. We have some of the highest rates, and when I say we, I'm speaking about Philadelphia, of premature death from heart disease and incidence of type 2 diabetes when compared to the nation's 10 largest cities. Typically, areas with the lowest income also have the least amount of access, as you'll notice is reflected in these maps. So again, on the left-hand side, we see that there are a high number of individuals living in North Philadelphia and Southwest Philadelphia who report low income and low walkable access to healthy food options. On the right, lower percentages of individuals in North Philadelphia also report perceived low perceived safe access to parks and outdoor spaces to engage in physical activity. And again, this is really important because it demonstrates that simply having a park nearby does not translate to real access and use by our communities. So when we talk about access, whether it's food access or access to physical activity, we're not just talking about geographic access. You know, it's all well and good if I have a grocery store across the street from my house. However, if that grocery store doesn't have food that I can afford, or food that I recognize, or food that I even like to eat, is that real access? So when we think about access, we're thinking about proximity, definitely. We're also thinking about economics. Can I afford the food that's available to me? We're also thinking about whether or not the food that is sold in my spaces is culturally appropriate and really makes sense for me as an individual, and as an individual within a larger community. So Get Healthy Philly seeks to reverse this trend, and we work with city agencies and programs like yours to support and create equitable access for all. So Philadelphia and the nation have high rates of children who are at risk for being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and heart disease. In fact, 1 out of every 2 African American and Latinx children is projected to develop diabetes within their lifetimes. This is largely impacted by excess access to unhealthy food options and lacking safe physical activity opportunities. The good news is that with high quality programming happening in schools and out of school time programs such as yours, we're seeing better we're seeing better outcomes among our children here in Philadelphia. However, we still have a ways to go. In this moment, we need that much more to focus in on the supports needed to take care of our communities, children, and families. As we know, there is a strong link between nutrition, physical activity, and stress management. And I want to continue to call that out as we talk through what we can do as program providers to support our community's needs. So what can we do about it? We have some questions that, I would love to engage you all in a discussion. We have a poll that we're putting into the chat box for those of you who are able to access it. And just asking questions about what it is that you are working on right now. One, who here is familiar with the Healthy Living Guidelines? What ways are programs integrating the Healthy Living Guidelines now? So if you access the poll that is in the chat box, you can click on that. It's going to bring you to a Google form document that you can just complete. And I'd love to take just kind of 5 to 10 minutes for you to sit and walk through that form, respond to some of our questions, and we can have a little bit of discussion. So as we're doing this, I'm going to unshare so we can see each other once again.
So we're going to give about 5 minutes to share. So about 5:30. So I'm going to spin and talk about what you guys have submitted.
I'm starting to receive responses coming through. Thank you all for participating.
Okay, Elaine says she can't access the poll. Okay, Elaine, can you tell me what is coming up or what is happening when you try to access it? Nothing is coming up. Okay, you said responses are coming in right now. Did you try to update? Okay, got it. Awesome. Thank you.
Quintis, I'm also going to go ahead and put the questions in the chat box for anybody who may want to respond there. I did notice somebody responded. Thank you, Tramel. In case that's helpful.
Okay, finally. Loaded. Tanya B, are you able to access the chat yet?
No, I haven't been able to. At first I did. I don't know what happened. Having a hard time getting the pool.
Okay, could you close out your web browser and try to jump back in?
I'm sorry.
Could you close out your web browser and try to jump back in to see if it'll come up?
Okay. No.
Got it?
No. I don't know what's
Not
going on.
yet. But you can, okay, so the questions are inside of the chat box. So if you would like to head back over to the chat box and just submit your questions
Okay.
and answers to the questions there, that's fine. Yep,
Okay.
no problem. Okay, so it's 10:30 and we got a good amount of responses from you guys. Let me head back over. So, it says, are you with the healthy living guidelines? We have
Quintis, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Yeah, Quintis, I think you are phasing out, but let's see. I
also have it open if you'd like me to walk through it.
Yeah. Can you do
that?
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. So again, thank you all for your responses. It looks like we have about 25 people who've been able to respond to the poll. Just over 50%, 56% of you have heard of the Healthy Living Guidelines and 44% of you have not. So I'm really thrilled that we're walking through this today. Whether you've heard of them, are familiar with them or not, it's a great opportunity to kind of come back and recenter ourselves. What ways are programs integrating the Healthy Living Guidelines now? All kinds of really amazing activities going on. Clubs, I see sports clubs, cooking activities, dancing classes, having worked with outside partners like Vetri in the past, regular fitness activities, nutrition education in the classrooms and after school, guided recess and outside time after school, healthy snacks and cooking activities, a focus on physical activity, nutrition education, and access to healthy food in our programming through cooking, gardening, workout programs, and more. But I'm not sure how that ties into the Healthy Living Guidelines. I want to just say it absolutely does tie into the Healthy Living Guidelines, and you'll see that in a moment. Something that sticks out, no outside food allowed. That's something that we've heard from many programs and have supported many programs in talking about policies to either reduce or eliminate outside food. As you know, for those of you who are situated in spaces that are close to corner stores, it can be very difficult. Encouraging students to, support their bodies and minds with healthy food options when it's very easy to walk into a corner store that might have food that contradicts what you're telling them, and what you're talking about, and what's being reinforced. So thank you so much for sharing all these. Some of the programs related to food and physical activity, similarly, cooking clubs, sport and dance clubs, nutrition education, family style eating, fantastic, yes. That's super exciting for me to see. Cooking clubs, lots of cooking clubs, socialized recess for physical activity, dance, sports, hands-on team building exercises, rap sessions, soccer and cooking, yes. And then challenges and barriers. Having a safe, clean environment to go outside and children playing games, having children participate willingly. I think that's definitely a challenge that comes up, and thinking about how we frame some of our activities, and what activities kind of draw in a larger audience. Implementing virtually, yes, and that's definitely something we're talking about today. Non-attendant access to green space, resources, the situation right now, social distancing, and then generally space and time, getting students to try new things, resources, space. So it seems like there are some themes here. And then having healthy food options students will be interested in, and getting them to try new things. So yeah, all great. And I'm excited to kind of pour through these. And we have another poll coming back up at the end of my presentation, to talk about that, to find out just and get some more information from you as we're building out these this resource library. We really want to hear from you, what kind of your unique needs are programmatically, and how we can support those. So thank you all for your participation. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again and go back into presenter mode. So I'm going to spend the next part of the presentation detailing out the healthy living guideline components and share resources that you can use in your programs. As I mentioned before, you'll find everything I share in today's slides in your resource library, plus many more curricular activities, handouts, things of that nature, web-based resources, and so on. So we're continuing to build these out, giving your feedback at the end of this session. So the Healthy Living Guidelines for Out-of-School Time programs were developed to provide youth with the best opportunity to be healthy while attending out-of-school time programs in Philadelphia. The guidelines were developed in partnership between Public Health Management Corporation, Department of Human Services, and Get Healthy Philly, which envisioned a healthy, attractive, and tasty foods, space to play, and peer and staff supporting fun physical activity. So I want to highlight a number of areas to offer information resources that can be shared out with your program staff, and actually with the communities that you serve as well, thinking about resources that can be shared out with parents and caregivers. So we know that food and nutrition, including adequate hydration, plays a critical role in stress management. So I can't emphasize enough how important your focus here is to practicing self-care and demonstrating care for your program participants. So related to nutrition, there are 5 components specific to nutrition, including increasing water consumption, reducing sugary drink consumption, which really kind of comes hand in hand, promoting healthy food options by eliminating outside food or only allowing healthy food options, providing clean, pleasant, and safe eating environments, and where nutrition education is offered, offering information from reputable sources without food company logos or advertising. So getting into water and hydration, as you saw in the previous slide statistics, most children and adults do not drink enough water, which leads to a variety of health problems. So, you might be asking, well, how much is enough, right? So there are some quick kind of calculations that we can do both for ourselves and for our youth. where we can figure this out. And I want to just kind of emphasize that this is like baseline. So like what we need to consume to adequately refill what we lose in a day. So on a daily basis, we can lose up to 2 liters of water just through activities of daily living. And how I know how much I need for me personally, what I would do is I can divide my body weight in pounds by half. I take that number, and that number equals the number of ounces of water I should be consuming each day just to replace the fluid that I'm losing by activities of daily living. So that includes things like talking. Right now, I'm blowing a lot of hot air around. I'm actually getting dehydrated as I talk. So I don't know if you've ever noticed when you talk for a certain amount of time, you tend to get thirsty because it is a way that we lose fluid every day. And so if I take, for example, a 150-pound person, I divide that by 2, that's 75 ounces of water that I need every day to replace just what I lose by talking, walking. You might be sweating because it's summertime, general activities of daily living. So that's 75 ounces. In order to figure out, well, how many cups of water does that equal? I divide that by 8 because there's 8 ounces in a cup. And that gives me 9 to 10 cups of water that I would have to consume every day just to replace what I lose through activities of daily living. So in terms of water and thinking about promoting hydration, promoting water consumption, we're very lucky here in Philadelphia. We're blessed with high quality tap water. Not only is this a great resource, it's also free. And so, one of the pieces of information that's really helpful for kids and adults alike is to think about, what that means, like in terms of getting the most bang for our buck, right? Like sugary drinks not only contribute to chronic diseases, but they're really expensive. So some of our work through Hydrate Philly, we partnered with Parks and Rec over the last few years to install hydration stations in recreation facilities across the city. And we were looking at how that impacts, water consumption, making things attractive, making things accessible, as we discussed before. But when we talk about even just the cost, 1 bottle of soda a day can equate to over $450 a year in spending and 23 pounds of sugar consumed. And so another thing to point out with something like, overconsumption of sugary drinks is, while there's some fluid involved, it's also dehydrating us at the same time. So similarly to if I drink a cup of coffee, yes, there's water in that cup of coffee. However, there's caffeine that's also dehydrating me at the same time. Mind you, I am a coffee drinker, an avid coffee drinker. But these are some things to consider when we're talking about sugary drinks, that sugar in and of itself serves to dehydrate us rather than hydrating us, which is exactly what we need during these warm summer months, heading into some pretty hot summer months, and all throughout the year. So while we consume the majority of our water intake through fluids, we can get a lot of water through eating vegetables and fruits too. So particularly, I think this is important to note during summer months when our water needs, our overall fluid needs increase. And a bonus, many of these vegetables and fruits are in season or coming into season right now. So they're a really great economical grocery option this time of year. So this chart is fruits and vegetables that contain over 85% water by weight. And so again, it's a great way to encourage vegetable and fruit consumption while knowing that it's contributing to our overall hydration as well. We also know that sugar-sweetened beverages are the largest contributor to excess calories for children. These products not only contribute to chronic diseases, as mentioned before, but also train children's palates towards excessively sweet taste through their lifetime. And beverage companies like Coca-Cola and Pepsi rely on this to maintain their customer base. And they care little about the negative health outcomes that their products incur. The American Heart Association recommends our intake of added sugar for children and women is a maximum of 6 teaspoons a day. For men, that number goes up to 9. And what I'm talking about is the maximum recommended, and it's not what we need to take in, it's more like the cap of what we should be taking in on a daily basis. For infants and toddlers under the age of 2, the recommendation is that they take in no added sugar. So I invite you here to just wage some guesses. Feel free to type them in the chat box as to which of these drinks, which of these beverages you think contain the most amount of added sugar and the least amount of sugar. So feel free to type them in the chat box as we're talking here.
Kat, could I just, I want to make a mention to a question that we have in the chat box as
Sure.
they're entering their answers. So question, are there neighborhoods in Philadelphia where you would not recommend drinking tap water? Since many schools.
So the question is about issues with infrastructure and safety of water, it sounds like. You know, water safety in our city is not a neighborhood-based thing per se. What I would say is if you have a question or a concern about the safety of your pipes, the water itself that we have, you know, flowing through the city of Philadelphia is perfectly safe. Our issue is one of infrastructure. And so the issues that we've seen in older buildings, including homes and schools over the past, you know, couple decades, have really been issues of infrastructure. So what I would encourage you to do is you can get your water tested. That happens through the water department. They will come out and actually test your water. There are ways to ensure that your water, you know, coming into your house is consistently flowing, so it's not picking up anything that might, you know, be in the pipes. But first things first, you can get your water tested. And that's a resource that the water department has been really active on, particularly over the last several years because of these concerns as they've come up. But the water itself, you know, what I would want to reinforce here is the water itself is not an issue. We do have some real infrastructure problems, and those can be remedied through, you know, one, finding out what they are, because there are a lot of fears that aren't necessarily as warranted. There are some, you know, definite like concerns. So thank you, Quintis, for pointing that out. Yeah, Home Depot and other retailers actually have free water test kits. So you can grab that and use that at your house if you have any of those concerns. So I just wanted to look here at some of the responses. Great. So I see soda has the most sugar. The least is the orange juice. Someone has potentially seen this before. So a 12-ounce soda, 10 teaspoons. And when we think about what the recommendations from the American Heart Association is, that nearly doubles our daily recommendation. This is a small 6.75-ounce fruit punch. Chocolate milk, so flavored milk, 6 teaspoons, orange juice, and actually the low-fat milk has the least amount. And so one thing to point out here is on, you know, the right and the left, that low-fat milk and orange juice contain naturally occurring sugars. It's not to say that there's, you know, not a concern there. However, with something like milk, you have a lot of other nutrients involved. So what you have there are things like protein, calcium, vitamin D, which are really important nutrients. Now, if someone cannot drink milk, there are plenty of ways to get calcium and vitamin D through other options, including other fortified, you know, non-dairy milks. Something I want to point out with orange juice is, you know, while it is naturally occurring sugar, what's missing from orange juice is all of what we would get from a whole fruit. And so when we talk about, you know, juice as a fruit, we never want to encourage juice as a fruit option, but rather encourage whole fruit. The reason being is when we drink juice, what we're getting is water, we're getting fruit sugar, and what we're not getting is all that great fiber that that is contained in something like an orange. And so what that does to us when we drink orange juice, and for any of you who are familiar with children or adults who have who suffer from type 2 diabetes and may have something like low blood sugar, one of the solutions is to give somebody orange juice because it results in a very quick spike in blood sugar. So for somebody who has low blood sugar, as a momentary kind of fix, that's what's used. So when we think about what that does to our bodies on a regular basis for somebody who doesn't have low blood sugar, and we have these continuous spikes, that causes problems over time. So we always want to encourage whole fruit in place of juice. So there are a couple of videos that you can use to demonstrate the importance of water and reducing sugary drink consumption in your programming. There's a full lesson plan available in your resource file that outlines a step-by-step demonstration using easily accessible materials discussing a variety of sugar-sweetened beverages, including sports drinks, iced teas, sodas, and energy drinks. So I'm just going to take a moment and play through these videos for you.
Before we get active, we're going to send Crystal to see Dr. Pat in the nutrition lab on some tips on what you should be drinking. See you later, Crystal, for the workout.
Hi, Dr. Pat. Hey, Crystal. I'm glad you could join me. Crystal's here today for our healthy tip of the day, which is cut down on soda and sugar-sweetened drinks. Right. Drinks such as sodas and fruit punch contain a lot of sugar. Some contain as much as a candy bar. And today, we're going to show you how much sugar is in this 20-ounce soda. 9, 10. Keep going. Wow. Perfect. 16¼ teaspoons of sugar in this bottle of soda. So, Crystal, what should we drink instead? How about water? Great idea. It's natural, it has 0 calories, and it's healthy for you. So cut down on soda and sugar-sweetened drinks and drink water and low-fat milk instead.
So here's one more, kind of geared towards a younger audience.
What are you doing? I just need one more to finish my masterpiece. Did you drink all those? Straight. Well, not all. Today. Do you know how much sugar you drank? Each can has almost 10 teaspoons of sugar. Have one super gulpy-sized soda, and that's 32 teaspoons of sugar from one drink. Think how much that is in a year. If you drink 3 cans of soda a day, easy, you'll be drinking a quarter pound of sugar. That's almost 2 pounds of sugar a week. More than 7 pounds a month. And you drink over 91 pounds of sugar a year. That's more than your own body weight, just from soda. So, what are you saying?
Did you ever think of water?
Refreshing. What do you call that again?
Water.
Sweet.
Rethink your drink. Choose water.
So in thinking about these, it's just kind of, visual opportunities to reinforce some of these messaging. We also have lots of, recipes using vegetables and fruits infusing into water to kind of make that, make water more tasty and appealing. I know, especially with young kids and many adults even, that, water doesn't necessarily, it may not be the first go-to because it doesn't taste like much, right? Or we don't like the taste of water. But there are lots of opportunities. And again, information that we are sharing in your resource library. And I imagine, these are activities that, I imagine many of you have incorporated in your programs already, but it's a great opportunity to kind of like pick and play and talk about how those vegetables and fruits that we're trying to encourage can also meet up with water to, kind of bring them together for refreshing beverages, particularly throughout the summer season. So the Philadelphia Nutrition Standards, as I mentioned earlier, reinforce the healthy living guidelines and provide a comprehensive picture of expectations around food and beverages served in City of Philadelphia funded programs, including within organizations contracted through the city, like DHS. So in addition to working with departments to fully implement these standards, we also provide guidance to programs to ensure children and youth are given adequate time to be physically active each day. And so the way our standards are broken down, and they kind of, set a great foundation for the work you're doing with the healthy living guidelines, is that they really set criteria for the basics of food, how much sodium is in something, how much, added sugar, how a meal comes together in terms of talking about balanced meals and overall nutrient standards. And as we navigate our way through a pandemic, there are several food resources available for children and families experiencing food insecurity throughout the city. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this site, but I just wanted to point out that it's a great resource to continue to share because it is updated. It has been updated over the last few months. As things kind of shift and change in terms of where the needs are for offering food resources to our communities. In fact, tomorrow is the produce distribution day. So every Monday, barring holidays and Thursdays, there are 40 food distribution sites operating all over Philadelphia, offering dry goods and fresh produce. They are paired with all of the work that's happening through the school district and other schools throughout the city, offering full meals to children during this time. So the second part of the healthy living guidelines includes physical activity goals. The 4 components include increasing physical activity in terms of like moderate and vigorous physical activity, providing a safe and healthy environment for play and physical activity, providing equitable opportunities for youth participation in sport and fitness programs, and reducing passive screen time activities where possible. So what do we mean by moderate physical activities? One, I want to point out, we don't have to be athletes to be active. There are lots of ways to encourage physical activity while maintaining health and safety during this time. We have this layer of physical distancing that needs to be taken into account. So things like walking, gardening. Up here it says hiking, but I want to reinforce that we're not talking about getting on a 50-pound backpack and walking up a mountain, but really trail walking, dancing, and bicycling are all things that we can encourage both at home and during summer camp. So there are so many benefits to physical activity, physically, mentally, and emotionally. In coordination with nutrition, physical activity plays a critical role in stress management. So lots of bullets here thinking about how physical activity improves our mood, improves our sleep, decreases stress, increases creativity, of course, strengthening muscles and improving our lung capacity, our heart health, overall bone density, and range of motion. But many of these really tie hand in hand when we think about mood and stress and using physical activity to increase our energy. And then on kind of the side of thinking about how does this impact our risk or ability to maintain healthy lives over time, physical activity actually helps us to lower our blood sugar and lower our blood pressure and increasing good cholesterol. So one more movement break before we wrap up. And this one, I'm going to put it out there. It's called the Banana Song. You may have heard of it. You may have done this. I'm going to unshare my screen again. so you can see me and move with me. I will get out of my seat and stay. So, full disclosure, this is not my making. I learned this from our early child care coordinator. I've done this movement break with young people. I've done this movement break across all ages. And I've done this movement break in a room full of men, which I never thought they were going to do it with me. So just going to put that out there. And they were not school age program providers by any means. And they humored me. So at any rate, this is called the Banana Song, and we'll just kind of walk through it. So give yourself some space, because we'll need to stretch out a little bit. So I want to invite you. Bananas, unite. Peel, bananas, peel, peel, bananas, peel, bananas, peel, peel, bananas. Chop, bananas, chop, chop, bananas, chop, bananas, chop, chop, bananas. Smash, bananas, smash, smash, bananas. Smash, bananas, smash, smash, bananas. Eat, bananas, eat, bananas. Eat, bananas, eat, yeah, bananas. Go bananas, go, go bananas. Go bananas, go, go bananas. Bananas, unite. Oh, it's so lovely to see all you doing that with me. Thank you so much. You know, this is a great start to the day, I must say. Just having the opportunity to be with you, walking through the Banana Song makes my heart melt. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen again and come back. So again, another, fun, short movement break. Be creative with it, like this is how I learned it. There's so many other iterations. I've heard different, versions of it. Lots of fun to ask kids how they would make it up. And again, going back to some of these brain breaks as we started the session, these are all available in your resource file. They can be weaved into daily routines and moving between activities, whether you're physically there or during virtual activities. And I wanted to point out, again, going back to this idea of getting the most bang for your buck, even small amounts of physical activity increase our ability to take in information, to reduce our stress levels, to kind of moderate how we are doing and feeling in the moment, and set us up for success. This is actually a great visual of brain scans of children who are, sitting, quietly for a period of time versus after walking for a period of time. And the red areas show where the brain is most active, and the blue areas are least active. So what you can see is just after 20 minutes of walking, which doesn't seem like a whole lot. I mean, many of us take that walk, many of our kids are taking that walk as they go from home to school every day. But what happens to us, mentally and in terms of our ability to concentrate, our ability to move into programming and activities and kind of be present and with one another, how just a short amount of time being physically active can make all the difference. And going to how we use screen time when we need to use it for programming. And again, kind of this idea of making the most out of every interaction. We're in this space right now where screen time is a need, right? Like how we interact with our kids and our youth and our parents and caregivers, we are heavily reliant on sitting in front of a screen to do so. There are impacts, of course, but there are also opportunities. So when I talk about passive screen time, there's this opportunity to kind of talk about, like, we just had some active screen time. We were working together. I had an opportunity to see you, you saw me. And I know this is something you've been talking a lot about as this kind of shift to virtual programming has been happening and will continue. That there's a difference there between that and say just watching a video like we did earlier. And having that balance is really important. So just kind of pointing out some of the impacts of passive screen time, especially out of programming, like during times where you don't have control over what's happening on the screen. So creating difficulty in distinguishing between pretend and real life, impacting ability to focus. Marketing is a big deal, especially when we're in this age of social media. We're in this age of using computers to play games online and all these things. And when this is happening outside of the confines of your programming, a lot of those outside influences creep in, right? Lots of marketing for unhealthy foods and beverages. And of course, increasing sedentary time. So using like virtual programming and screen time to increase physical activity, there's a great opportunity there. When you're having conversations, or when your program providers are having conversations with kids, taking stock, looking at like, what are they eating? What are they drinking? Using that as a teaching opportunity to have a conversation, especially when you're talking about water and hydration and nutrition, so on and so forth. So I just want to end with another poll. And, some of this we may have time to talk about before I finish up. But really what I want to do here is learn from you, gather information from you, and use this as a way to inform how we offer resources and provide support to your programs throughout the summer and as we head into next year's out of school time programs. So we'll take another 5 minutes to, and in the meantime, I'm going to open this up. So the participant feedback is in the chat. I'm also going to go ahead and type these questions in. For those of you who can't access the poll. Okay. Great, I'm seeing responses coming in. I also see a couple responses in the chat. From Francine, I do drumming with storytelling, so the banana song would fall in lines. Great. Oh, wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, I love the combination of, music and, physical activity, drumming as physical activity, right? Like these activities aren't, they don't sit in isolation, but they really all work together, and bringing together storytelling. It's so beautiful. See supplies for STEM and STEAM and more arts and crafts supplies, include textures and molding clay. Yeah, thank you all for your feedback. Lots of love for the banana song. I'll have to pass that along to our early child care coordinator. This will make her smile. Thank you, Naomi, for pointing out that being able to use these movement breaks for virtual programming.
I see someone gave a response that they would be interested in knowing more literacy-based food games. So you guys jump on, if everyone, whoever is jumping on to the ASAP session, they actually, was it ASAP? I don't think it was ASAP. They have they did Scrabble with the Cheez-Its. You know, Cheez-Its have the Scrabble pieces, and they actually did that for a family night. Had the kids play Scrabble, but just with Cheez-Its. So it's still literacy and it's a healthy snack. So if you can think about putting together a game or asking them about the Cheez-It game, that may help.
I'm seeing some responses coming in. What resources are useful to your programs? I see outdoor space, brain break activities. I like the banana song, the amount of sugar in drinks. So yeah, so resources, we definitely have those available for you. Movement break resources, working with Philadelphia Youth Sports Collaborative, cooking clubs, exercise and dance club, information on Philadelphia parks. That's a great one. We can put together and work with Quintisa and Naomi on some of that mapping. Nutrition facts and encouragement for students. Stretching breaks, figuring out how much water is needed per person and reminding students fruits and vegetables have water in them. More types of fruits and vegetables to offer students, as it's often the same each week. I think that's where those kind of opportunities kind of infuse, different and more creative snacks into programming can be useful. What are you working on now related to food, nutrition, and physical activity? The plant cycle, implementing physical activity, educating students on healthy practices throughout the day, both with nutrition and exercise, connecting families to food resources, integrating physical activity and nutrition into virtual programming, and making gardening virtual. Wow, that's really impressive. I would love to know more about how you're doing that. Literacy-based food games, online activities, social distancing, physical activities, both indoor and outdoor, creating my lesson plans around nutrition, dance, and other physical activities. Using food and fun activity includes learning about healthy foods and doing a physical activity, so kind of combining those together. Oh, here's a resource. We use this program, Harvard School of Public Health Prevention Research Center's Environmental Standards for Nutrition and Physical Activity in Out-of-School Time Programs. Wellness Wednesdays. How can Get Healthy Philly? What can Get Healthy Philly do to support your efforts? Activities for kindergarten through 6th grade to become engaged, resources, providing relevant resources and trainings, provide team with the information we need to teach our students, send info on what we can do during the pandemic, provide tips and resources for our programs, keep advocating for OST. Great. Great. Thank you all for your feedback and for your participation. And I just have my contact information up here as well for you with our webpage, where some resources are housed. But like I said, I'm working closely with Naomi on your resource library, so it'll be a much more direct connection to that hub.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. Katherine, Quintise, anything else you guys want to share?
No, I just wanted to again express my appreciation for letting me take some time today. It's great to see all of you. Yeah, and I wish you all the best as you head into summer programs. And keep letting us know, like, you know, any way that we can continue to provide support. You know, I know the you know, opening kind of reopening guidance is now available on the city's website, and I think you're likely receiving that through your programming. So yeah, I wish you all the best as summer comes.
Awesome, thank you. Quintice, I think you were muted for a little bit, but.
I realized that. I was like, oh my gosh, I was muted the whole time. I was just saying thank you to everyone for joining. And if they had any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box at the moment. We have about, well, 1 more minute left, but I think just please a few questions. And if anyone had any questions for Katherine or myself at the moment. I would like to note, let me see, it was something in the chat box. I was like, I really, really like that. Even though I like everything that you guys have entered into the chat box. My computer froze, so everything literally just loaded. Like everything just came in my chat box real fast. I don't even.
While Quintice is
If
looking, you're gonna
someone had children submitting smoothie recipes,
Mm.
and then it was so each week, I guess it's a chosen chef. So whatever, you know, a student's recipe is chosen, they complete that recipe for probably the healthy eating segment of the day. I think that is amazing. That you've choice, you've driven, they're excited to think of a recipe, to submit it, even if some of the recipes may say like, oh my gosh, what is that? Just the fact of them being chosen and giving it a try, I think that is amazing. I can't remember who posted that, but I think that it is awesome.
Awesome. And we will be sending out a survey at the end of the conference on Friday. So any comments that you have about this particular workshop, please put them in your mental Rolodex, or if you're like me and you don't have a mental Rolodex, just write them down and then save them for the end of the conference when we fill out our complete conference survey. Well, thank you, everybody. If anybody, like Quintice said, if anybody has additional questions, they can certainly reach out to either Katherine, Quintice, or myself. Hopefully you all will be joining us for our provider self-care luncheon that's going to be happening in about 30 or so minutes. I will actually, I'll share the links to all of the workshops so that if you didn't have a chance to register for that particular workshop or any of the workshops that we have over the next couple of days, you can at least have those links. So let me just share that with you guys right now.
Katherine, would you mind inputting your email in case anybody wanted to reach out and had more questions? Could you put that in the chat box?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And we'll hope to see you in the next couple of days.
My computer froze again, so I may not see it, but.
Bye, Kat.
Bye, Heather.
Bye.
All right.
Thank you all.
Everyone.
Thank you. Not loading. You guys can head over to the next session if you would like. Well, may not start yet. Oh, I didn't make a